So where do philosophers in general come out on that question of suffering, and where do you land?
Well, historically, for centuries, atheistic philosophers have defended the view that the existence of the suffering and evil in the world is logically incompatible with the existence of God.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. As long as you only consider the omnibenevolent definitions of God. If omnibenevolence is a major part of your definition of what it means to be God, or, who your God is, then definitely the problem of evil stands in the way of him being, or her, being real. The fact that you call this God omnibenevolent and then also say that this God created things, or this God has any kind of pull in this world, or does anything in this world tangible, something real that supposedly happens. I feel like if that God were to exist, then all of the unnecessary suffering in this world wouldn't happen. Like tornadoes killing people. It doesn't mean that tornadoes can't exist as some physical phenomena, but just the fact that tornadoes would kill some of God's most ardent believers for just living in one particular area on this earth, while we understand it from a scientific perspective, from an omnibenevolent magical God perspective, it kind of leaves us wondering, why would God do this? Why would God allow this? This seems like needless suffering. If God has a plan for us, or he has some reason as to why he's allowing this to happen, and he's like all-knowing, then why can't he figure out a way to accomplish whatever task in a better way that doesn't include the suffering of the people that believe in him? So logically, yes, it doesn't make sense for unnecessary evil or unnecessary suffering to exist in this world if your God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and omnibenevolent, which rules out the Abrahamic God, and that pretty much attacks the three of the biggest religions that exist right now, including Christianity.
And now on the contemporary scene, this has really changed. Virtually no one defends the logical version of the problem of evil anymore. And the reason is that it lays upon the shoulders of the atheist a burden of proof that is so heavy that no one has been able to sustain it. The atheist would have to prove that there is no logically possible reason that God could have for permitting the evil and suffering in the world.
Well, first of all, for the claim that nobody argues for the logical incoherence of evil existing along with an omnibenevolent God, I mean, I think that that's probably the stronger part of the argument. The fact that God's supposed to be omnibenevolent, but there's all this unnecessary suffering. I feel like that's a pretty big, logical flaw in this construction of an Abrahamic God. So I'm gonna need a fucking citation that nobody argues for the illogicalness of evil existing in light of an omnibenevolent God. I mean, I just laid out in this video how it is illogical. So I feel like that's still going around. That still makes sense. Maybe Dr. Craig can enlighten us on how it's not illogical to consider that God allows evil to happen, but yet he's still an omnibenevolent God. Also, something that I'd probably bring up before I bring up the problem of evil is all of the evil shit that God does just because he can. Like in the Old Testament, there was a group of Israelites that was getting a little lippy, a little uppity and everything. And God just creates a sarlacc pit and has it swallow them whole. Like, you couldn't think of a better way to resolve that confrontation, God? You just had to completely erase them off the map with a sarlacc pit? Seriously? And then there's the whole killing of all the firstborn of Egypt. You seriously couldn't think about a way to resolve that confrontation without killing innocent children? Really? I feel like if any God is omnibenevolent, he's not going to do shit like that. He would figure out whatever way he could how to accomplish his task without needlessly killing children. And I could go on and on and on with all of the evil shit that happens in the Bible that if God were omnibenevolent, he definitely wouldn't do. So the problem of evil extends far past what we experience in reality today. Obviously, there is unnecessary evil that happens, unnecessary suffering that happens that God allows, and there doesn't seem to be anything good to come of it. But the problem of evil extends into their own theological work, the Bible, because God does a lot of evil shit. He commands a lot of evil shit on top of allowing a lot of evil shit to happen in the Bible. So I feel like the illogicalness of evil and suffering is pervasive throughout the entire idea of an Abrahamic God.